I was having a conversation with a friend about this, and they're like, yeah, I think I said a bit too many yeses during my like follicular and ovulation phases, because then when I got to like luteal and my menstrual cycle, I was like, oh crap. Like I overscheduled. And that's when you kind of are like, oops, sorry, I did too much.
There's that gift that goes around the internet where it's like the person canceling an event and they're like, I'm sorry, I know I committed, but I was younger then. But it's like the same, like, I know I committed, but I was in my, I can't remember the name of the phase you said, but yeah, I was in my follicular and ovulation stage then. Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? Podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in. Hello, everybody. We're doing this right, Colleen?
Yeah, we are, man. Every day we're doing it right. A little bit righter every single day. I think that's how we
writer.
Yeah. A little more correct.
I love it. Okay. We have a special guest today, Lauren McAlister. She's an entrepreneur, a writer, a holistic nutritionist, and a mom of one, soon to be two. As a co-owner of McAlister Training in San Luis Obispo, Lauren leads day-to-day operations and member experience. Also a certified nutritional therapy practitioner, Lauren partners with women to build healthier relationships with food, fitness, and bodies. I love that.
Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, the 2-sentence bio is so minimal. So who are you?
Yeah, tell us everything about you right now.
Yeah. Who am I? I am all of those things. I'm also isn't that the hardest question when people ask you, like, who are you? Or like, what are your hobbies? Mm-hmm. And then I pause. I'm like, do I have any? Who am I? No, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a mom, right? So I'm 28 weeks pregnant, feeling all the feels with that. I cried over the amount of laundry I had to fold last week.
Listen, I'm not pregnant, and yeah, that's tear-worthy.
Every day, and I'm not pregnant.
Yeah. My husband was like, you could tell he did not know what to do. I was like, I'm sorry, I think this is the hormones, but also like there's a lot of laundry. Like, can you help me out here? Yeah, I mean, that's something that's kind of fun. My husband and I own our business together. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic between the two of us. We found a way to make it work really well, but it has its ups and downs. I'm a cat lover. I'm owning that fully. Yeah. I used to be embarrassed by that because people tend to have really strong opinions about felines.
I'm getting some Taylor Swift vibes. I can totally I'm feeling this. There's some T Swift vibes with your aesthetic and your cat loving. Like maybe she's your soul sister.
I do feel like Taylor and I would get along well, I can see it. But I wouldn't call myself like a Swiftie, like I didn't pay hundreds of dollars to go see her in concert. I did go to
Cheryl and I and we almost got scammed, by the way. Side note.
Oh, really? Oh gosh.
We almost lost, between us and our friend Allie, we almost lost $1,500. So everyone, watch out for the scams on the Taylor Swift tickets. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I feel like it's an important topic.
PSA. PSA.
Yeah. Its own podcast for sure.
Yeah, why didn't we do an episode on that?
I don't know, we should. Anyway, not important, but also yes.
Very important. So what else? I feel like I'm really passionate about just women generally and advocating for ourselves, really understanding what's going on in our bodies and being able to kind of harness that and see it as a powerful thing versus like a pain in the ass, which I think a lot of us do sometimes, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about, like our cycles and things like that, which I'm really passionate about. But yeah, I mean, there's as per usual, there's a lot there's a lot of things I could say, there's a lot to us as individuals, but those are just the things that are coming top of mind right now.
Yeah, and we just learned that Lauren is also like a Forbes contributor, to Forbes magazine online, right?
Yeah, that's my proudest one. I was working at MindBody, which if you're local to San Luis, everyone knows what MindBody is, but it's essentially a software that the fitness, wellness, and beauty industry uses to run their businesses. My husband and I actually use it to run ours. And I was a content marketer there. And so essentially what I always tell my parents, because they don't understand what that means, a writer. And part of that was with my background in nutrition, I was like a wellness contributor here and there. So they would present us with really fun PR opportunities. And they really tapped into this idea of cycle syncing. And I was super excited to talk about it. And yeah, so I was featured in Forbes talking about menstrual cycles. And I'm really proud about that. I think that's really,
and now
I think that's really
on this podcast talking about cycle syncing, and we would love for you to chat with us about that. That is something Cheryl and I have had kind of on our wish list of things we want to talk about on this podcast, because as we often joke, we have 4, maybe less now, male listeners. So we're a woman centric podcast, or like female centric podcast. So we really want to know, like, how do we maximize, or how can we, I don't want to say maximize our cycle because that sounds weird, but like, how do we sync our cycle with how we can work best? Or is that even a real thing? How do we do that? Because listen, I am tired sometimes, and I am grumpy as hell sometimes, and I cry about the laundry sometimes. And sometimes those are, I think, physiological based on like hormonal, and sometimes those are just because I'm so tired. And also there's a mountain of laundry. But I think it's helpful for us, especially as women entrepreneurs who are trying to do a lot. And a lot of us are, not all of us, but a lot of us are also moms, right? And so we wear these multiple hats that take a lot of our time and energy. So I think this is a super important topic. Like, all jokes aside, I think this is really, really important and really insightful information that you just need to tell us everything about right now.
Yeah. So the whole concept, and I will give you like we'll do like a brief overview, and then you guys can ask questions as you need to. But I discovered sort of this concept reading the book Women Code by Alyssa Beatty. And it's like, if you're interested in this topic, that's kind of like the book, right? She is someone that goes into such detail with like what you should be eating, or what you should be like, even down to these are the vegetables you should be eating during which phase of your cycle and things like that. That for me is a little bit much, where it's like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and just kind of like, one, understand what's happening in my cycle. I think that's really important, and something that we're not taught as women, which is actually mind-boggling to me. And then kind of just like giving yourself a little bit of grace, right? Because I think that's exactly what you said. It's like, sometimes, yeah, you're just tired, but sometimes there is a physical component to it where you can and should give yourself some grace. So the concept of cycle syncing is really the idea that we as women really can optimize our physical and our emotional well-being just by tailoring some lifestyle choices. And that's based on the natural hormonal fluctuations that are happening. I think something that, again, was really mind-boggling to me was men have a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So they're pretty constant, like every day. Ours is, I mean, a normal female cycle can be anywhere between 25 to 35 days. And throughout that whole process, there's ebbs and flows and differences that are happening. Whereas a man, it's every 24 hours, he resets. So I think that's just, that in and of itself is really interesting and kind of explains a lot, right?
That totally tracks.
Like, yes, they're like, okay, here we go. And there may be like some ebbs and flows throughout the day, but
especially the roller coasters tracking over here.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And there's a reason for that. So the way I like to think of it is, and I try to make this really simple for people when I'm talking about it in terms of like what you quote unquote should be doing or what you may be feeling during the different phases of your cycle. And I do that with 2 different words, and I use alliteration because I'm a writer. So hopefully we'll make that easy for everyone listening. And I will send these to you guys too, so you can put them in the show notes, because I think it's something that maybe I should like design something cute and we can all like put it somewhere.
We definitely think you should, and we're going to encourage you to do that, because
yeah,
Paulina at our core are just coaches for entrepreneurs. Like, yes, do that. Let's go.
Yes. And then like as you're through your cycle, when your husband's like coming at you or is like, what is going on? You can just point and be like, sir, that's where I'm at today. So really there's 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, right? So menstruation is your period. And then it goes into the follicular phase, which is the days following your period and as you head into ovulation. Then you have ovulation, which is like the 3 to 4 days in the middle of your cycle. Most women are familiar with ovulation because that's when we can conceive. And then the luteal phase is the 10 to 14 days between ovulation and your period. So, menstruation, right? This is not going to be surprising information to anyone that has experienced a period. My 2 words for it are rest and reflection. So your hormone levels are at their lowest, right? So you're going to feel less energy, probably less desire to be social. So this is a really good time to just like take it easy and to give yourself that grace. It's a good time to like just chill on the couch, if you can, as much, as possible. Focus on, if you want to go more specific into foods, like warm foods, iron-rich foods, because we are losing iron just by, the depletion of what's coming out of us. And this is a good time for more like restorative workouts. So like gentle walking, maybe some yoga. Like this isn't necessarily the time, or, my husband and I own a high intensity circuit training studio.
Is high intensity.
Cheryl, you can speak to that. You're aware of that. So I've had members where I've like just had conversations about this in passing, and they're like, well, do I not do the workouts during this time? Or do I, what should I do? And can I like tailor my workout routine to this? Well, yes, you totally could. So you could like take a pause, go do some yoga. This isn't the time for like heated yoga where you're, going crazy. Or this is also a time where you could just be like, you know what? I'm going to give myself grace today. And like, I'm going to take my pace and I'm going to slow it down. And I still want to be in the company of people in a group environment, which you may or may not want to, but I'm going to slow it down a little bit and just be okay with it. Like, instead of beating yourself up, like, oh, I didn't grab the heavier dumbbell today, or I really didn't want to jump today. Like, yeah, don't just take it easy.
It's so funny you said.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
What I'm hearing, like, schedule your workout around your cycle. Great. And like for anyone on a regular cycle, if you would, like female entrepreneurs, I urge you to like put this week on your calendar, like project it out and like give yourself the reminder, like at the top of that calendar, like don't overschedule this week. Leave time, like time block for rest this week. Like this is that whole thing we keep talking about schedule your days around your energy, not your time. So if you can predict that you're going to be lower energy, which like I know with my cycle, I will have a fucking headache for a week, and I don't schedule for that. And I really should.
Yeah. I was going to just make a really insignificant comment. Cheryl says much better. But when you said like warm food, I was like, dude, that is such a thing. Like we joke because my mom used to say like, there'd be times where she'd be like, I just want hot food. Like I'm craving like hot food. And my like college roommates and stuff like that would be like, that's such a weird thing to say. But as I'm now in my 40s, I was like, I want hot food. I want warm, comforting food. And what an interesting way to realize, like, if you're not good at tracking your cycle, like that might be an indicator maybe of like where you are and what's going on in your cycle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in like the postpartum period, right? In, culturally for decades and eons, right? People that's what's healing, is those warm like soups and stews. And in all the nutrition books that are speaking specifically to like pre and postpartum nutrition, that's what they recommend. They're like, this isn't the time to be having like gazpacho. Like this is the time to be having like, your chili, your oatmeals, like you're kind of hunkering down. And it kind of, sometimes I feel like the way that you can look at the seasons of the year, you can also look at the seasons of your cycle, right? And they kind of align in some respect. And what's interesting is the next phase, so after menstruation, almost feels like how spring does, right? Where, so the follicular phase. So that's the days that are following your period and heading into ovulation. And my two words for that are energy and enthusiasm. So Cheryl, to your point, 100%. As entrepreneurs, we should be that have the flexibility within reason, right? Like there's going to be times where like an important meeting comes up when you're on your period and you can't necessarily say like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to reschedule because I'm, you know.
Oh, you have an offer deadline on this house that my clients want. I'm sorry, I'm menstruating. I can write you an offer in my next menstruation cycle phase.
I mean, as much as that would bring me like, it would bring me a lot of joy. It really would.
Same.
For someone to be, I'm so sorry, or to have like an autoresponder that's like, you know what, today I am unavailable because I'm on, you know, I'm on my period. So sorry. But maybe we'll get there one day. I don't know. We got to start with at least people knowing what these are. So we're going to start there. But this is a great time for like to saying yes, right? Ironically, I was having a conversation with a friend about this and they're like, yeah, I think I said a bit too many yeses during my like follicular and ovulation phases, because then when I got to like luteal and my menstrual cycle, I was like, oh crap. Like I overscheduled. And that's when you kind of are like, oops, sorry, I did too much.
There's that gift that goes around the internet where it's like the person canceling an event and they're like, I'm sorry, I know I committed, but I was younger then. But it's like the same, like, I know I committed, but I was in my, I can't remember the name of the phase you said, but yeah, I was in my follicular and ovulation stage then.
Yeah, I know. And that's me, as like, I am that person. Like I'm a social person. I love being around people, but I have my limit. And then I'm like, oops, I committed too much. And hopefully I have, you know, at this point, my friends know that about me. So they're really forgiving if I'm like, I'm really sorry. It's a no for me today after all. Okay. Yeah. So this is a great time in the follicular phase. It's a really good time to goal set, to brainstorm, to be planning, to saying yes to social activities. As a mom, this is a good time to like, if you're going to take your kiddos to Disneyland, that would be ideal to do it during these few days, because this is when you're going to have the energy and you're going to be able to keep up with them. So then also, this is for, if we're just talking workouts too, because people ask about that all the time with me. This is a good time to be going to your classes, to kind of be upping the intensity, kind of pushing the weight. But again, you know, this isn't like you're not, every day is so different, right? So it's the kind of underlying message in all of this is to always give yourself grace and to just kind of listen to your body. But this is just like kind of a nice reminder of like what may or may not be happening in your body throughout the month.
Okay, so we've had winter and spring, and then is ovulation summer?
I think so, yeah. So ovulation, isn't that kind of fun? I mean, I'm a dork, so I find just like all of this so fascinating. And then the connection to my daughter's really into the moon. Like people are like, why? Like we had her dress up as the moon. She's super into the moon. And there's like an element of that too, and the tides, and it's just like, we're so powerful. It's really cool. And it's like we're very connected to nature. It's very woo-woo. We won't go there, but I find it very interesting.
We are a little bit woo-woo. It's fine. This is a safe place for woo.
Cool. All right. Love it. So yeah, so we're going to go into ovulation. So my two words for ovulation are connection and confidence. So this is when estrogen is really at its peak, testosterone too. So this is when you're really high energy, you're feeling good about yourself, you're feeling communicative. This is a good time to have hard conversations. It's a good time to go out on a date with your partner. it's most intense workouts. If you're thinking, CrossFit or circuit training or hot yoga, going for longer distance runs, like this is the time when you can kind of push it and your body and your hormones will support that versus your, menstrual phase. Any questions on that one? I didn't even pause.
No, and I feel like during the ovulation, like that's the time where you walk in a room and heads turn. And I think that's probably the way maybe pheromones and stuff. Like we're animals at its core. So it's so funny. Like that's the time probably where your husband's like, oh, he can't keep his hands off your butt all of a sudden. He just doesn't know why, because you're just putting it out there. You're just living your best life. So like a big sales proposal would be great during ovulation, because you are just like irresistible, because everybody wants to implant in you. I mean, really, that's what's happening, is we're trying to like get a mate.
Yeah. That's when it's happening. That's when it's going down, is ovulation. So then after ovulation is our luteal phase. And that is the 10 to 14 days between ovulation and your period. And this is when things start to kind of slow down again. This is when you're more detail oriented. So I have it as details and downtime. So your progesterone levels start to rise. Progesterone is that kind of cozy, calm hormone that we love, that most women that are working full time, have kids, are doing crazy high intense workouts, are not eating enough. That's the hormone that typically drops when we're doing all those things. And we love it. It needs to be in balance, obviously. But so towards the end of the luteal phase, the estrogen and testosterone and progesterone, they'll have hit their peak and then they begin to drop, and then they hit their lowest levels just before your period. So this is when you may be more like aware, calm, you want cozy. This is a good time to like be at home and be doing those like organization projects, putting things away, kind of trying to get this is a good time to be folding laundry. That's probably when you're like going to be
a month. Okay.
Just do it once a month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the permission.
Yeah.
I cannot fold laundry right now. I'm ovulating. We need to wait towards the end of my luteal phase, my love.
This is why we need the chart. Laundry is not in the chart right now. We're not in the laundry.
So this is towards the end of the luteal phase. You're going to have less energy. You're going to be starting to kind of focus inward in preparation for menstruation. So this is a good time for gentler movement, maybe like more non-cardio strength training, Pilates, things like that. And those are the 4 phases.
Oh, I love it.
And that's fall. We're going to start slowing down for winter. We're going to get ready to hibernate. Yeah. I really do want this chart. Make this chart and like put things like, make it in a circle and put like in this phase, like the laundry, or in this phase, like the, like kind of,
Listen, I would like this in an app. Actually, I would like it in an app.
Yeah.
And I would like it with so I have a app where I track my cycle. I'm terrible at it, but it helps me like predict and I used this mostly when I was trying to get pregnant, but I've kept it. But wouldn't it be cool in the app to then also, by the way, no one steal this idea. This is only for Lauren. To like have like, hey, you're in your luteal phase. Like, here's some really great things. This is what you should be prioritizing. This is what you should be scheduling. Here's where your strengths are. Like,
and then export that to your calendar so that you can have that like across the top of those days when you're like planning out your month. Oh God, this is just money.
I would pay for that.
Lauren, congratulations. You don't forget the little people when you're rich from creating this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the ideas, guys. I love it.
I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about progesterone. And because I think we hear a lot about estrogen. We know what that is, and people know what that is, and people know about testosterone. This is, I don't want to say important to me, but it resonates with me because I had low progesterone with all of my pregnancies, which is, like you said, when you have low progesterone, like that is when your period starts, right? So that is part of why I lost my first pregnancy, is because my progesterone was so low, and I still run low on progesterone. So like, and I don't know if this is your expertise or not, or you can speak to it or not, but like, how does that affect our cycles, or talk to us a little bit about what that hormone does or doesn't do for us, or how it helps us?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can speak from personal experience a little bit. Like, I struggled for about a decade with an eating disorder that I didn't really register as being an eating disorder. And when I went to conventional doctors, they were very much like, oh, wow, they were looking at my hormones, and my estrogen and progesterone were like totally in the tank. And then, so as a result, like my testosterone levels appeared very high,
Yeah.
just probably more in relation to how low everything else was. And our bodies as women are so incredibly smart. So for me, my body was like, yeah, you're not in a position to have a child and to maintain a pregnancy. And like, I wasn't ready to have a kid. I was in college at that time. Like, it was the end of high school going into college, and then early 20s. And it's like, well, I wasn't ready. But from a physiological standpoint, that is what our body is like ready to do at that time.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, because my body was so physically stressed by the under eating and the over exercise for me, right? That was my story, that my progesterone levels were just like so bottomed out, and I was stressed all the time. And I think, unfortunately, as women in this day and age, we are kind of primed to have hormonal issues, and specifically low progesterone, which then, yeah, I mean, when you get pregnant, you need progesterone to maintain a pregnancy. And so and again, I'm not like the end all be all expert on this. And there are some wonderful women in our community that I'd love to connect you guys with, that I think could speak to this so much more intelligently than I could. And those would be really fun episodes, I think, for people. So I can definitely send you their contact. But anyways, yeah, I think we're just like, we're trying to do it all. And our hormones are the ones that are kind of taking that and going, okay, I can't. And so there's all of this hormonal imbalance that we just think is normal, I think.
Yeah. Or that we try to just like push through, and we're just like, whatever, we'll just work harder because we're supposed to do it all.
Yeah. We'll just, you know what? We're just going to have more coffee, and we're going to like do more workouts that are going to help us like feel awake for 15 minutes and then crash later. And it's like, yeah, we're actually adding fuel to the fire by doing that, versus like saying no to some stuff, or like taking things off of our plate and like going for a walk outside and like doing the basic stuff. Like, it's amazing to me from like a nutrition standpoint when I work predominantly with female clients. I think that's my preference, honestly, because one, we can talk about cool stuff like the phases of the cycle, and women just need it. I feel like they need someone, and that's kind of my favorite part of my job, is to be in the corner going like, yeah, you're doing a lot and you're doing a great job, but like, also let's take off a couple things, because it's not really just the food, it's like all the other stuff, like bad sleep, saying yes to too much, like, folding too much laundry, like doing all those things. So it's like, okay, where do we take those things off of someone's plate so that they can have some room to, like, I don't know, go do something they enjoy? Like, one of my clients last week, one of her homework assignments was, hey, let's like look into getting a membership where you can go swim somewhere, because she like really loves to swim. And I'm like, let's that. And she's like, is that it? That's all? And I'm like, yeah, that's all we're doing this week.
Yeah.
I need you to go you don't even have to sign up. I just need you to like find a place that has a pool. That's all I'm asking for you to do. Like, let's just take a baby step. Anyways, I'm going all over the map. But yeah, also the bigger question, to your point though, is like, there's so many miscarriages happening all around us. And I again, I'm not the expert. I don't have all the data on that, but it's like, I think this low progesterone that's kind of all over the place
is stress induced, most likely.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, going back to just my own story, as soon as I literally took an entire year off of like structured movement and just focused on eating and like gaining weight, which is like to like intentionally gain weight is a very interesting mind switch, and to slow down and just go for like walks here and there. Like that's what I needed to like get my hormone levels back. And I had lost my period. And so I finally got my period back and did that all on my own. Whereas like doctors were telling me at 17, like, yeah, you're going to have a hard time getting pregnant.
Like, cool, not helpful. Like,
yeah, I was like, cool, thank you for that. And also, no, I haven't had any trouble getting pregnant. Thankfully, I'm very lucky in that sense. And I don't take that for granted, but it's like trying to optimize your hormones where you can, trying to take it easy. And I'm not good at this. I will be honest. I have to constantly like, my body will tell me when things are too stressful because I'll just like have like an emotional meltdown. So I have to listen to those cues and be like, yeah, okay, you need to not do that this week.
yeah. Well, and I think that is a really good point to like recognize that when you're having a meltdown, that is an emotional cue, because I think we're almost conditioned to be like, yeah, I think sometimes like when you're in this like mode of entrepreneurship or pushing really hard for something, or you're, you know, like trying to be a high achieving woman, like you just have those all the time and they just kind of like become normal. And you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, we talk about, I'll go and cry in my closet and then come back and I'm like, beep, beep. Okay, next thing, let's go. But like, you know, to your point, like maybe that's just a cue, like chill out, lady. Like maybe you just need to chill out a little bit, rest.
Yeah, I was working at one point, working full time. I was managing a team at my job. I was managing our business and trying to like grow that. And then I was fairly newly postpartum, and I would say like weekly, I was like on the floor, emotional breakdown. Like and it was so funny because people would go, "Well, oh my gosh, how are you doing this all? Wow, you make it look so easy." And I would literally say to them, I'm not doing well. Like I'm not okay. And it was like, oh yeah, well, you seem like you're doing great. And so I thankfully had friends in my life that were reminding me and were picking me up off the ground, literally being like, yeah, what are we doing here? This is not okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bigger conversation of like, we celebrate it,
Yeah.
but then we're not okay. Our hormones are wacky because of it. It's also interconnected.
I was just talking about this with my Inspire Her group here in Indianapolis. We were talking about how you do get praised for quote unquote doing it all. And look at all the things you're doing. And isn't that so great? And how amazing are you that you're able to balance all of these things or do all of these things? And you know, we get validation from that, right? Like we're like, oh, okay, yeah, I am doing all these things. But inside you're like, I haven't peed in 7 hours and I'm starving and I have too much coffee and somebody help me. And I just like, if, you know, it's like the one thing happens and then it all comes crashing down, right? Like, you know, somebody doesn't close the dryer door all the way and then the clothes stink or something. I don't know, whatever it is. And you're just like, I can't do it all. And you're on the floor, right? But so often we're told, you're so great for doing it all. How wonderful are you? How amazing is it that you can do all of these things? And we're never praised for like, wow, you were really doing that one thing so awesomely.
Or you did a really good job being intentional and listening to your body and taking a rest when you needed it. Good job. That's what we should be telling our kids if we want to see this change in the next generation. Like, good job paying attention to your body's cues. Thank you. Let's give you what you need.
Yeah.
I got this perspective when I was like very ill. I've talked about it a little bit, but I had kidney disease I was diagnosed with in 2013. I underwent treatment with heavy dose of prednisone. So that fucked my hormones all up, and to a place where it was like, it was barely sustaining. It's that saying, like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like I was at this high level of stress, like physically and emotionally and mentally with what I was dealing with. And it would be like one more tiny thing. And I was exactly what you described, dissolved on the floor, could not function, was not well. And that was like the extremist picture of that I've had in my life. But we're all kind of doing that at different levels throughout. Like it's that thing where like the dryer door didn't close. And that's the straw that broke the camel's back, because you're just operating at such a high level of stress and like mental noise that like there's just not room for one. And it's always the smallest thing that sets us off. It's like I'm dealing with like these very traumatic large things that I'm carrying around every day, like these boulders, and then this little tiny pebble drops on and I'm like boom, it was enough. And I saw that when I was going through the treatment, and now I see it more and more, like not only in my life, in my husband's life, in, you know, I can see like, oh, you're just at capacity. Like this feels really hard to you right now. And on a normal day, it wouldn't, but you're just like, you're too far. You've gone too far. I don't know the answer. It's just an observation.
Yeah. I had a friend the other day. We had plans and I texted her, like I was telling you guys, I'm great at being like, sorry, I am going to be a no today. I've gotten better at that. Of course, I still feel guilty, of course. But she had the best response. And I don't remember verbatim what she said, but it was essentially like, you know what, I'm really proud of you for listening to your body. And like, yeah, we'll just reconnect next week. And I was like, that's how we change it right there. Yeah. We as women say, okay, cool. Totally get it. Sorry, my daughter is crying. My mom is supposed to be watching her. Sorry about that.
That's
okay. Hold on one second.
No worries.
Great. Hi, Gaga. Where's Gaga?
Working moms. Everyone will be like, I feel seen.
Yeah, feel like a behind the scenes look at real podcasting.
This is entrepreneurship. This is business. This is, you know, one of the things you said in your notes, and we can put this in, Cheryl. So one of the things that you said in the bio that you sent us that you're passionate about is choosing entrepreneurship as a parent. And I think that that is such a cool perspective to just like think about, like to choose it intentionally as a parent and what that means, because I very much have done that, but I've never verbalized it in that way. So talk to us about that. I love that.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I feel like I've had a really big mindset shift recently. And I think because of my daughter. So my husband, the way that our sort of entrepreneurship story started, when I look back at my childhood, I see these entrepreneurial like passions that I had that I think I quieted because I come from a very traditional household in the sense that my dad worked for one company. He graduated college, worked for one company his entire career.
Well, yeah.
Which is so unheard of these days. And then my mom stayed at home with us. I have two older brothers. My mom stayed at home with us until I was about, I think, 10 or 11. And then she, God bless her, it was a special education aide, which is like a whole, very telling, I think, of who she is. Just like the most patient, wonderful person. But it was very traditional. And so I never had that thought of like, oh, maybe I can do my own thing. Like, I think it was always in my mind, like, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a job, and that's that. And my husband comes from a very different background. His parents weren't necessarily entrepreneurs. They were kind of, we talk about it now in the sense that he's kind of been in this weird like survival mode his whole life. Like it was always like just making ends meet, working really hard. He's an incredibly hard worker and like doesn't complain about it. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's tricky because it's like, hey, you need to get out of like the day-to-day grind. Like he's just so used to grinding that it's like, hey, we got to like take you out of that a little bit so we can project like what we want and our future and what do you genuinely enjoy and what are those like bigger projects that maybe take time up front but then are going to pay off long term, which is a topic for another day, but we're working on that right now. But so we met when I was 17 years old. He was 18. And we started dating, and that was never my intention. It was never my intention to like meet the guy that I was going to marry at 17. And I actually struggled with that a little bit during college because I was like, what am I doing? What's wrong with me? But if you meet my husband, and Cheryl, I know you have, he's he's just a keeper. I don't know. We've really grown organically and better together versus like separately, which has been really nice. We've kind of grown up together. But he chose personal training and kind of that entrepreneurial route partially out of necessity. He was like working full time, working like overnight shifts at a gym, and then wrestling and paying for everything. I mean, it was crazy. It was like very stressful, kind of in that grind mode, like I was saying. And he's really, really excellent at what he does, and he's really passionate about it. So it's been really cool to see someone grow in kind of their genius. And I feel like it's so rare to find people that find what they genuinely love to do and then kind of just go for it. And so I was sort of just brought along. So at the beginning, I did not choose it, right? It was not my choice. He was just like, oh, you have a marketing degree. You can kind of help me. Or, I'm much more organized than him. And so I would be like, and he would tell you that that's not, me talking smack on Michael, but
I'm that person.
He needs me in that regard.
I'm that person, and Cheryl's my wife.
Yeah. There you go. So there's like the visionary, and then there's the person, I feel like that's often behind the scenes, like making the spreadsheet and like kind of making the things happen behind the scenes. And that's kind of been the role that I've taken. And so anyways, it wasn't really my choice, and I was always working full time. And that afforded us the ability to grow the business and not necessarily have it feel really incredibly stressful. And because I'm more of that safe person, I was like, oh my gosh. But then physically, like I was saying earlier, I just kept having these physical and emotional meltdowns like on a weekly basis. And it was just coming in between everything. And it was like, okay, we need to make a change. And I think adding the child into the equation just totally changed everything, as it does. And I made the choice to take a step back from my really safe job that was like socially accepted by my family. I still have people ask me like, well, do you think you'll go back to work? And I'm like, well, I
am working.
Yeah. Thank you. And that's I've made that choice to take a step back and focus on growing our business. And like, my goal is to continue that for the long term. And there may be a time when I do want to go back to a, full-time, like 9-to-5 gig. But now as a parent and having another baby on the way, yes, I don't get a quote unquote paid maternity leave, but I get so much flexibility that I can pick my daughter up from school and I see her all the time. And I feel like she's so confident in who she is because she's been in she sees us all the time. We're in and out. I mean, it's a dance. It's not pretty by any means. And some days I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. But at the same time, I wouldn't trade it in. And I think also just logistically, I mean, I have a young daughter right now. Like, I look at the schedules and I get offended for other parents. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're doing late start Mondays every Monday. Like,
don't talk to about
Friday, late start Monday. Oh, it's conference week. Everybody's out at a different time than normal. Pivot.
Nothing is built for the working parent. I'm like, I honestly don't understand how people are doing like the 9-to-5. Like, if you don't have flexibility in your gig, I'm like, I don't know how you're doing it. Thankfully, I think a lot of companies are offering that a little bit more, but even still, I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah. Well, and then what happens is it falls on one parent, right? Like, and then we come up with this concept of the primary parent. And
yeah,
that is really intense. And I think I would not challenge you to say, but like, it's interesting to hear you saying like, I'm going to take a step back and do this. When I look at what you're doing is you're taking a step forward. You're taking a step forward into your business and for your family and for your business to really accomplish this bigger goal and to be able to have that time flexibility with your children. Like when I left my really secure job when I was pregnant with my third. We started our own business when I was 9 months pregnant with our third baby. And, you know, when I talk about Jackson and that time, I go like this, and what you people listening can't hear is I like put his, like I'm carrying him, because he was in the carrier with me for 11 months at the start of our business. And he went with me every single place. And and I was so lucky. And that was so hard, by the way. It was not easy, you know, like nursing him in the car in between meetings with, I had a construction firm, you know, in between meeting an inspector and a sub. But that time that I had with him was invaluable. And I could pick my kids up from school and I could take them to school. And those were things that were important to me. And I think that's what you're doing as well, right? You're stepping up for your family. You're taking a step forward for your family and for your business. And as a businesswoman and as an entrepreneur, like, I think it's so interesting when people are like, are you going to go back to doing this other thing? And you're like, don't you see what I'm doing?
It's like going forward in my business and my family.
Yeah.
So let's reshift. Let's change those words, Lauren, when you're telling your story. Let's change your story. Like,
I'm still conditioned, right?
Yeah,
I'm still like, messaging has still impacted me, even in a space of like, I feel so much more confident in that decision, but it still lingers. And I think it's that external, like when people ask questions like that, my big shtick that gets me every time is when people talk about my husband's business. And I'm like,
fuck that,
okay.
by the way. Fuck that.
Yeah. Which I, again, adore him, and he gets offended. He almost gets more offended than I do at this point by that. But it's like, it's just, anyways.
I mean, I feel that
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my husband and I had this business together. I ran 98% of it because he still had his regular job, but we were a construction business and he held our license. And when I tell you, even his family, even his parents and brothers and sisters would go to him and say, hey, can you help me with X, Y, and Z? He goes, I don't, it's Colleen's business. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that is. But everyone would go to him, right? And I mean, I've told this story before, but we had a painter who was like, ask your husband if we can do this. And I looked him straight in the face and I was like, I don't need to ask my husband. I'm the boss. And he was like,
I love it.
It's that conditioning. It's that external pressure, force. I don't know what it's called, right? But those other people
it's called bullshit,
external bullshit, who assume because you're a woman and because you're a mom that you're just taking some time off, or that you're secondary in the business in some way. And it's really up to us to push back on that, you know?
Well, thankfully, according to Peyton Hughes, we're stepping into the Aquarius, and females are going to be taking our power finally. And I do feel the shift personally, and it might be the echo chamber that I've created, and I'm fine with that. But this is going to start like sounding out, you know, like it's going to start trickling out. It's our turn to lead, and we'll be better for it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm always like, it's amazing that it boggles my mind. Once again, my mind is always being boggled that like never had a woman lead this country. It boggles my mind. I'm like, they've been leading. We just, no one's given them credit, I think. What's happening.
They've been doing a lot of the leading.
Yeah.
And when they're not, shit's going sideways.
That's very obvious.
Okay. So Lauren, you have an offer that you're coaching nutrition virtually. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I have my nutrition coaching side of the business, which has been it's been equally exciting and nerve-wracking because, you know, there's that like imposter syndrome that comes up of like, nutrition is one of those big beasts that like, if there's someone that says that they know everything, they are lying to your face. And so there's always something to learn. There's always more, but And so that was holding me back because I'm a perfectionist, high achiever. I'm speaking to my people. So you guys get it. And then I finally I've had my certification and I've been reading and digesting information and podcasts and things like that since 2017. This is not new, but it's funny because I finally this year was like, okay, I'm putting this out there as an offering in our business. And people are like, wow, congrats. I'm like, yeah, I've been here. I just haven't like put myself out there in this way. And I think, again, I was just so used to being that like behind the scenes person. My husband was the face of the business. He's the trainer. I'm not, So I was like, you know what? Screw this. I had someone tell me, you're being selfish. You're being selfish by not putting what's on your heart and the information and the knowledge and the passion that you have for people by hiding behind like not knowing enough or whatever. She was like, you need to stop. And that was really excellent advice and kind of a funny way of saying it. But I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, I think, I'm like keeping this to myself. So yes, I offer virtual and in person. If you're local to San Luis Obispo County, we can meet in person at our studio. I have my cute office, but we also do virtual coaching as well. And really it's tailored to the person. I'm not someone that believes in like a one size fits all approach. I'm not someone that believes in like, here's a meal plan. It's really, hey, we're going to talk about what your concerns are, what your goals are. We're going to dive deep. We're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about, are you pooping every day? Or we're going to be talking about like the nitty gritty. And then we're going to start to work through like, okay, hey, you clearly have every woman, I feel like, unfortunately, topic for another day, whole other podcast, but we have these terrible relationships with our bodies that we've inherited from our moms and we've inherited from the media and all of that. And so it's unpacking a lot of that. That's my favorite work to do, because when it starts there and we talk about the relationship with the body and how we view ourselves, it changes everything and it changes the nutrition goals and the foods that you choose. When you feel better about who you are and give yourself all the props for all the incredible things you do, you start to view it as fueling your body instead of like, okay, how can I lose weight? How can I XYZ? Those goals don't feel as important anymore, even though you can still hit those goals. So anyways, it's a lot of really fun work. I love it. But yeah, you can go to McAllistertraining.com/nutrition. And that's kind of my space right now. I just started my Instagram for the nutrition side of the business, which has been fun. It's me just being kind of a dork and just showing kind of an inside look at some of the swaps I'm making and things that I suggest. And it's just at the beginning. So we'll see where it goes.
What's that account called? How do we find that one?
It's just at McAllister Nutrition. So we have the at McAllister Training and then at McAllister Nutrition.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. This was an important conversation. Like, we covered a lot, and I was totally
so much.
Every little bit of it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. We're so excited for you to make this, continue your steps forward. And wherever we can support you in your business, and everybody go and follow and like. And check out Lauren, because if you can't see her and just hear her, she's also like adorable and you will love her. And we're just excited for you. And we're so happy for you and for us to be able to share and you to not be selfish about your gifts and share them with everybody.
You want to see Lauren, you guys, we do have a YouTube channel now where you can go and watch all of our podcasts. And FYI, they come out like Sunday and these don't come out till Wednesday. So if you want a sneak peek, Colleen doesn't even know that.
I didn't even know that. Insider info. Cheryl's being selfish with this insider info.
The YouTube comes out whenever I finish editing the episode. The podcast drops every Wednesday, everywhere you get your podcasts other than YouTube. So
amazing.
Love it. You'll be able to see all my hand gestures over here. I can't help myself.
I know. You get to see the behind the scenes. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Keep doing it right. That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.